Hey guys, so today we're going to cover Heaven's study, and Heaven's study is the one that goes alongside Eysenck's theory. It's the study that almost supports Eysenck's theory, and so today we're going to have a look into that. I have already covered Eysenck's theory. If you're unsure about this, it is on the channel, do take a look, but otherwise let's get into Heaven's study. And so before we start looking at the study, we have to understand just a couple of key bits. Firstly, Heaven heavily supports Eysenck's theory. What that means is that Heaven believes that Eysenck's theory about people having a criminal personality is correct. Even further, he agrees with the three personality traits that Eysenck identified. These are psychoticism, extroversion, and neuroticism. However, neuroticism was replaced by self-esteem in his experiment. You do need to know that because this often catches students out. Finally, you also need to know the definition of delinquency, and it's really simple. Delinquency, it means petty crimes, small crimes committed by usually younger offenders. Anyone sort of under the age of 16, 18 committing a petty crime, that could be called delinquency. So now that we understand that, what did Heaven actually do? Well, Heaven conducted his experiment over 2 years using questionnaires. So over 2 years makes it a longitudinal study, and the fact that he used questionnaires makes this what we call a self-report method. We'll discuss a little bit more about that later on. The sample was made up of 282 students, all from 2 Catholic schools in Australia, a place called New South Wales. These students were all 13 to 15 years old. Please remember that they're all from Australia because often students believe that all the studies come from America. So this is a very unique case where actually a study was conducted outside of America. So, what did Heaven actually do with the participants? Well, Heaven needed to find out, 1, what kind of criminal personality they had, and 2, what kind of delinquency they were getting up to, if they were committing any minor crimes. In order to do this, he asked them 2 questionnaires. I've put up some examples of some of the questions that may have been used in each of the questionnaires, but just know that, firstly, you don't really need to know what the questions are, and secondly, there would have been so many more questions than this. This is just a small snippet of what he could have used. Now, after 2 years, making it a longitudinal study, he did the same thing again. He asked them both questionnaires, and he wanted to see whether which kind of personality type they came out with the first time had an effect on whether they had committed any sort of delinquent crimes. So, what did Heaven find? Well, the most important finding you need to remember is that there was a positive correlation between psychoticism and delinquency, and that was both at the beginning and the end of the study. So basically, the higher the score of psychoticism on the questionnaire, the more likely they had a high score of delinquency as well. Extroversion showed a weak positive correlation with delinquency at the end of the study, but it was a very weak correlation, and there was no significant correlation between self-esteem and delinquency. Finally, males had higher delinquency scores than females. That was both at the end and the start of the study. So to summarize, the best conclusion for you to remember is that psychoticism was the best predictor of delinquency. That is the one conclusion that I would recommend that you remember. And finally, just like every other study in theory, we have criticisms to go over, and Heaven has a lot of criticisms to discuss. Now, there are loads of really simple ones, like the fact that it's culture biased because they're all from Australia, and the fact that they were all from just 2 Catholic schools. But higher level answers are going to discuss things like the fact that it was a correlational study. This means that we can't establish cause and effect. Is it that delinquency scores caused people to become psychotic, or are people who are psychotic more likely to be delinquents? We can't tell because it was a correlation. Also, the closed questions mean that we were using a self-report method. Let's be honest, most of these participants could have lied in this study, and specifically the questions about delinquency may have led to participants not being completely truthful about their illegal activities. I mean, how many people are going to admit to committing crimes? Even if it is confidential, they probably still wouldn't admit it.
And now we come onto the exam zone, the part of the video where I use a real past paper question to test your knowledge of the video. In this case, we're using a real question from 2022, and it challenges your knowledge of the criticisms of the study. So pause the video if you want to give it a go. I'm going to put the answers on the screen now, and as you can see, it's all about using the context of the study. Be really specific about the study itself, not just saying things like culture bias without backing it up with specific detail, such as saying they're from Australia or just 2 Catholic schools. And with that, you should now be an absolute expert on Heaven's study. If in doubt, play the free booklet that I've just popped up on the screen with a QR code, and take a look at my other videos if you'd like any other help with OCR psychology. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one.